Hello everyone, I'm Sheila again here. Here I am to introduce our next speaker of the day, Mr. Pinkesh Shah, to share his insights on the topic Career Growth Plan to Get to a CPO. Mr. Pinkesh Shah is currently the Chief Product Officer at Qualys. He is a Silicon Valley executive with an overall experience of 20 plus years as a product management executive. Previously, he was the Global Vice President of Product Management at McAfee R&C Business Unit, which is now part of Intel, for around 14 years in the US. He is a guest faculty at several internationally acclaimed, reputed B schools like IIM Bangalore, Amsterdam University, etc. He is an angel investor and he is one of the founding board members at IPL. Please welcome Mr. Pinkesh Shah to the stage with applause.
Thank you. I like the style of the applause at the front because at the end we don't know what's going to happen. So I think it's a very safe bet to do this, isn't it? I really liked it. Thank you. Thank you for the lovely introduction. I hope I can live up to their expectations now that they've kind of painted me a little up there. But I'm Pinkesh. I live, and the last 20 years I've been in the US. I just flew in day before yesterday in my Pune office, and obviously have been very deeply associated with the community building that Product Leaders Forum have done, and so couldn't pass up the opportunity to fly down and just say a quick hello to all of you here. So hope you guys are getting some value, and hopefully next time you are the volunteers driving this as opposed to just sitting and consuming this, right? At the end of the day, all of us have to pay it forward. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. I currently am the Chief Product Officer for Qualys. Has anybody heard about Qualys? No? Clearly I have to do a lot more work, because I was about to say I just got promoted to also the Chief Marketing Officer of Qualys, a company that nobody has heard of here. So clearly I have to do more work. No. Thank me when I actually build the brand, because that just happened last week. So I run all of products, all of marketing globally for Qualys. Qualys is roughly about $500 million in revenue, so that's about 500 million in revenue, about 10,000 customers. I think in 140 countries. We have customers in countries I can't even spell the name of these countries, right? So we're fairly well established. So that's a little bit about me. But I'll tell you more importantly, is not about where I am right now. What I was told is to talk a little bit about how I got there. And I think it's important to see if some of you are interested in, I can share some of those journeys and kind of some of the things that I did or didn't do well, and share some of that, right? So that's kind of the plan. I was told to speak for 20 minutes. How much time do we have? 30-ish? Okay. Good. We can shut off the slides. I was going to say no slides would be good, unless you guys care for it. I'm happy to just take more Q&A, more questions that you actually have on your mind, and do the Socrates style of presentation. Has anybody heard the Socrates style of presentation? Yeah, right? So you ask a short question, I give you a long answer. That is pretty much what a Q&A Socrates style session is. So stop, ask questions. I have a lot of things to offer, to talk about, but honestly, we have 20 minutes, and I'd rather make the best use of that time while all of you are here, and make sure that you get something out of this that's meaningful for you, as opposed to me showing you some slides, right? So with that, I'll pause. Any questions? No, I meant it, seriously, no slides. Let's go through questions, and if there is a slide that can support that question, I can kind of go there and try to figure out and show you a visual thing. What are you here for? What do you want to know in this session? Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting what you're doing, right, Pinkesh? So you were a product office person, and then you moved into marketing. I think I have a pretty loud voice.
I think it's probably the recording, maybe they
okay.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to actually ask was, you are a product person, and now you moved into marketing. So those two are slightly interconnected, but are very far apart from the dimension of it, right?
Very true.
So how, why you think you were offered this?
Yeah. Why was I hired to do that? I actually asked that question to my boss as well when he did that. The thank you, but seriously, why, right? He hasn't given me a great answer yet, so I'm going to follow up with you, and when he tells me more, I'll tell you more. But I'll tell you why I think this makes sense. But since there was a storytelling session, the lovely session that we heard, a little bit of things that I just caught at the end, let me start from the beginning instead of answering your question. And I think it's important to know where it all started, right? So I'm a hardcore engineer. How many of you are engineers, by the way? Well, that's a wrong question to ask in Bangalore. But I still had to ask, right? Because I would have guessed that 90% of the people in Bangalore especially are going to have some kind of association with some kind of science, right, or engineering. So I'm one of you, 18 years ago, and did my master's and bachelor's, everything in computer science, hardcore developer, ran cybersecurity. So my passion was cybersecurity from the beginning as a specific context within computer science. And I joined this company called Pinkesh, which is in Houston. And I'm heading up engineering, small team, 100 people company, very smallish startup. The boss walks up on a Friday afternoon, and I still remember the day when he did that very vividly. And so the boss walks up and says, I'd like to change the compensation model for 3 of you. So there were 3 engineering leaders at this point, me and then 2 others, right? And generally you don't pay attention to everything your boss has to say. Is that true, by the way? Don't answer if you and your boss are sitting here together. But generally, you don't pay so much attention. Yeah, of course, yes, right? But you don't pay. But compensation, you stop, you listen now. What's going on? What's happening? So he said, I'd like to change the compensation model. And the model is going to change to either you getting compensated on the bonus part. So typically everybody has like a salary. Well, I shouldn't say everybody, but most people have like a salary, a bonus, and some stock. Especially in Bangalore, stock is very important, right? So, but there's a salary and a bonus, and the bonus is tied to company performance, right? Does everybody had a bonus here? Some kind of a bonus? Whether you get it or not is a different story. But is it supposed to happen, right? Everybody understands? So there's a salary, there's a bonus. Bonus is usually tied to company performance. So he says, that's the current plan, but the plan B is that the company bonus is not relevant to you. Your bonuses are only tied to the product that you are working on from an engineering perspective. Which means the company does great, your product sucks, you don't get that quarter any bonus, vice versa. Company doesn't do well, but your product is through the roof, and you have until Monday morning to decide how you want to switch on A versus B. You have a choice. Right? So long story short, sleepless weekends. When an engineer gets faced financial questions, what do you do first do? Open Excel. Because you got to analyze now, what's going on here? How much money, this, that, what's the chance? So I did all that, clearly realized I don't have enough data to make any good decisions here. So we rolled the dice, 2 of us. Long story short, we said, yes, we'll go with plan B. And that was the day that I accidentally became a product manager. Right? So while the title still remained engineering leader, while my team still remained the same, my business card says the same thing that it did before, and yet everything changed. Starting that Monday, everything changed. Because the questions that you would ask now as an engineering leader is not about how do I parse this XML 5 seconds faster, or how do I re-architect this system, or whatever, right? Whatever engineering work that you have to do. Instead, who's the customer? Why are we building this thing? Am I going to make more money if I do this feature versus that feature, right? Because bonuses are tied to this damn thing now. This product better fly. And I think that's the customer context, business context, innovation context, which really is what product management is, right? If you really think about it, while there are fancy definitions, and I can show you some charts to make you, doze off on a Friday afternoon, because there are so much words on it, at the end of that day, it's really 3 things, right? And so that was my first accidental movement, not planned, not trained on it, probably not even having intent for it, but I moved accidentally into product management. By the way, it turns out that 1/3 of all product managers in the United States are accidental. Did you guys know that? I mean, you guys are pretty good that you have so much maturity to understand products and Many of you had important things to do in life today, and yet you showed up here. But for every one of you who's sitting here, you better believe it, there are thousands of people for every one of you who are still waiting for that accident that kind of happened with me, right? And that may or may not happen. So you guys are ahead of the curve is all I'm trying to say. I'm an accidental product manager. And so since then, I've been in product management for about 14 years. I was in McAfee, heading up all of products globally for the first time. Forget the title. I mean, they call me vice president and all that looks good. Feels good to go talk to your wife and say, well, honey, I'm a vice president. I'm like, no. But the point is, the fact that you now are responsible for the profit and loss, the fact that you're responsible for a real business to run, and the stress that comes with it, the thrill, I should say, positively speaking, right? The thrill that comes with it is very different compared to being a product manager who's in charge of a module, of a feature, or of a capability, right? So I've been doing that, and now coming to your question. And she's like, well, that was a very long answer to your short question. So, are you finally going to ever answer my question or not is what she's thinking. So now I'm going to answer your question. So I joined, so I've been in product management for most of my life, but in every one of those product management roles, you always have to interlock with marketing. And so the difference being between the two, fundamentally now, going back to the context of how this is important, right? So product managers are always thinking about how do I build it, why should I build it, for whom should I build it, in what phases should I build it, except that the marketing guys look at the slightly reverse lens saying, whatever you've built it, or in fact in many cases something you've not even built it, let me go test whether there's a customer for it who's willing to pay. How do I message this? How do I communicate this value proposition to a set of customers who may get excited about wanting this product, right? Where there's a need for it. And so the connect between product and marketing has been slightly loose if I look at 10 years ago. In today's world, product and marketing are a lot more closer. And in my opinion, in the opinion of many other visionary leaders, these two things are going to fuse together. You may have heard of this term called product-led growth. Yep. Have you heard of this new fancy term that everybody talks about? If you haven't heard, go home and Google. Don't Google right now. Pay attention to what I have to say. Now, go home and Google, learn a little bit about this because this is the future. This is the future of most, I would say, digital companies. That may not be the future of product and marketing merging with, let's say, a manufacturing company. By the way, that's a question I should ask. How many of you are from non-digital companies here? Like you build soaps, and shampoos and earth-moving caterpillar type of devices. Only one? Partial maybe. Okay, 2. So 3, 4 of you, right? But most of you are in digital. And I'm sure your companies, even they are not called digital, there's going to be a high degree of influence of digital transformation, the way you sell your products, the way your customers consume, right? So if you're in a digital world, which most of you are, product and marketing is actually going to fuse together and become one. It's already happening in many companies. That's why you have this new title called growth hackers. Have you heard of this title? If not, you'll hear this growth hacker, growth marketing manager, growth product manager. And so what that really means is that you're sitting at the intersection of product management and product marketing or marketing in general, and you're doing both because you need the skills on both sides. You can't just build a roadmap and have a theoretical plan which you're implementing on and then not know how customers acquisition kind of works. So because the world is moving towards PLG and because I've had to dabble a lot of that in my previous companies, my CEO last week said, hey, you know what? It makes sense. You should run both. So that is the reason I have both. And I think that's the reason why many product leaders, many who are sitting here, many who are going to aspire to become one, good news or bad news is you're going to have to learn the marketing skills as well as part of your job description because the job description is changing. And so you thought, oh, I'm barely going to get to product management. Now you're telling me I have to learn even more? Yeah, unfortunately, I am the bearer of bad news today for you. But that is true. The world is moving towards product-led growth, which means which means lots of things to lots of people, but I'm simplifying, your product self-sells itself, which is not the case 15 years ago. In fact, even 10 years ago, even in many cases, many companies today, you have disproportionate amount of sales people versus product people, right? You'll have 200 sales people, maybe 50 product people. It's flipping now. Less and less sales and more product, because the idea is that I don't need sales guys to go sell my product. My product self-sells. I build the product, I message the product, I design the product in a way that just connects with the right set of customers, communicates the value of that product, and the customer says, love it, I'm going to sign up for it. Maybe I'll call the sales guy to help me install, operate, and all of this. So you'll still need some salespeople, but not initiated by sales, which has been the case 15 years ago, right? Some of our alumni who I coach in the executive MBA cohort at the Institute, which is where I'm here also taking a class tomorrow, are from Cisco. I met Mukul. Where's Mukul? Anybody from Cisco? No? Only Mukul from Cisco? Okay. Usually there's a lot more people from Cisco in every gathering I go to Bangalore. 15 years ago, the way you sell Cisco is because of sales. If sales is not going and playing golf with your customer and trying to go and close this $1.3 million deal, it's not happening, right? That's the old way of selling. Now, $1 million deals are actually happening digitally. You still have a salesperson, but salesperson was not the reason you knew about this product. You figured it out on your own, thanks to Google, thanks to reviews, thanks to Gartner, thanks to all kinds of third-party digital information. It's almost like buying that car, right? There was a time when you go to the car showroom and that's the only way to find out. Now you're researching your car, 90% of you is convinced about the car. You're just going to the car showroom to get a feel for it and buy. It's not because of the sales guy at the car dealership who's impressing you, isn't it? Think about it. In our own journey, this is actually happening. So I would say lesson learned, if there is a lesson learned, is, and I wish I knew this. Had I known this, I would have started learning marketing even before in my career, so that I don't have to wait for last week to happen. But lesson learned for me, for all of you, in my opinion, is the definition of product is expanding. The definition of product management is expanding to consume parts of positioning, messaging, branding, pricing, packaging, which are all traditional marketing functions, getting slowly rolled up into one function, right? Which is product plus marketing. Yes. So before I go to, did I answer your question? I still didn't know why they picked me, but I still am figuring that out, right? So
my intent of asking was like, you were already here, how did you land here?
Yeah. No, so I think the two things that I would say in that particular question is that I don't know why I landed here. I mean, you'll have to ask my boss. But I have had the skills because I took interest in my product world, in the marketing world, enough to start, dabbling, expanding my skill sets. Because a lot of hiring, I mean, most managers sitting here will know, you don't hire people hoping they will get better. You hire people because you know this guy is good. So this is actually reverse psychology. Think about it. Each one of us is saying, well, I want to go get that job. But the person says, but you have no experience in this thing, so then why should I give you this job, right? So this is like the chicken and egg type of thing. First you get me in the role, then I learn, or do I actually tell you the skills I already have and then you hire me? It's the second thing that's happening a lot in the world today also. That's another lesson learned for me for sure. This resume-based hiring is dead. And those of you who are updating your resume and sending it to 500 places and hoping that some magic will come, go to the nearest temple and pray, right? Whatever it is that we have to do, stop doing that because it will give you mild depression. Seriously. I've coached hundreds of people now and they all say, well, but Pinkesh, I have an awesome resume, I submitted, I did this certification, this 4-letter word, this 6-letter thing, all this I did, and nobody's even calling me. Like at least one call, that we thank you, we got your resume. Nobody's even doing that. Mild depression is kicking in. You're self-doubting now. The worst thing that can happen to you is this. You're already self-doubting yourself. for a reason that is completely nonsensical. Nobody cares because nobody's looking at your resume. You are one of the 1,000 other submissions that happened today. And over 30 days, that's 30,000 submissions. Who in the right mind has the time to go through all of this, right? So I would recommend start thinking about expanding the skill sets in the marketing world if you are thinking product together, because those two are getting fused in the next 5 years. And it's happening in a lot. I'm sure it's happening in India a lot, but it's certainly happening in North America a lot. Okay, good. Now we'll go to your question. Yeah. 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 That's right. Well, so let me give you some not so scary news first, and then I'll give you some maybe scary news a little later, right? The good news is that I think though gone are the days where product managers are expected to do engineering-ish type of work. It's becoming less and less. I know some companies may still be deploying these practices, but quite frankly, more and more companies now are realizing that that's not a good use of the time for a good product manager to sit and review code or be technically involved, because somebody else can do that also. But if you free up this person, if this person has the skills to do other things, including new markets, new opportunities, pricing, business modeling, there are 25 competencies that a product manager has. And I'll make a list of things. If you guys want to see, I'll show you a slide. But there's a graph that you should definitely see, which is 25 skills that a PM should have globally. And these are universally accepted, right? Now, you look at those 25 skills, which everything is from market analysis to strategic planning to product planning to sales enablement to I forget all the categories, but there are 25. The requirements writing is just one of those 25, right? And within requirements writing also, you're not really expected to sit down and do engineering work, but you're supposed to sit with engineering to explain to them the user stories that you've created and the requirements that you've asked them to build, right? But it's a very tiny part of the product management world. Now, I understand that many product managers, especially in India, the tiny part is your role because for whatever reason, the maturity is not there. But my recommendation is find a different company who expects you to do more than just the tiny thing, because that tiny thing is a very small thing and your growth will be stifled. If you all the years that you will spend just doing that one tiny thing, then somebody will, now the scary part, somebody will kind of replace very quickly, right, with this whole 1/3 curse that we all live in, right? We all live in, when I say we, how many of you are less than 5 years of experience? Okay, well, you're immune to this curse that I'm about to talk about, right? So you're good. Feel good about, and feel free to ignore what I'm about to say. But the rest of us, who are over 5, you and I all have, the curse becomes higher and higher if you have 10 years of experience. You're more susceptible to this disease than I'm about to tell you. If you're 15, you're like prone, you're high in radar. If you're 20, you may already have this disease, right? So the disease is very simple. It's the 1/3 curse. Somebody will show up at your office to your management team who only has 1/3 your experience and 1/3 your skills and is available at 1/3 the price. And the company may say, you know what? Good enough. Good enough. I mean, this person is not as good as this person. Certainly has only 1/3 the skills, 1/3 the experience. All that is true. But his or her expectation is only 1/3 your price. And over the time, over the 14 years, you've grown up. Whether you like it or not, your salaries have grown up, right? And so, you know what? That's good enough. We'll manage it. 1/3. Welcome to 1/3 curse. Fair enough, right? Am I I'm not scaring, hopefully, a whole lot of people. This is something you should know. If you don't know, well, go home tonight and think a little bit about it, right? So if you stay in that tiny circle, the 1/3 curse becomes lot more. You have lot less immunity to that piece. Does that make sense? Super. Okay, good. Yes. And can we roll the mic so that they can use that for the recording?
So, like when we are planning for any product, like generally what's happening, like when we have to release first version, we are getting confused, like whether we should keep this in the first version or not. So, how we should decide, like whether we will keep in first version or not?
That's a great question. It's a question that I have had to ask hundreds of times in dozens of companies I've worked with, right? So in my 20 years of journey, I've probably worked at about 6 companies now. And so on an average, let's say 4 years, right? 3-4 years in per company. McAfee was my longest stint. Qualys, I'm very new, by the way. I'm day 70 at Qualys, right? So I'm still, figuring out this large, thing that we have. But here's the best practices that you want to kind of always look at, right? While there are other factors, and it'll take some time for me to explain the RICE framework and some of the prioritization techniques and MASCO and all these models, but I don't want to turn this into an education class right now. I'll give you a simpler version. And the simpler version is don't do MVP, which is what a lot of people tell us. I think this is a very misunderstood term, I think, and hence misused term that, hey, I just need to do minimally viable things to do in my first version. I think the answer, if you want to use an M word, I think you should use the MLP, minimally lovable product, which means do the minimal set of things in first version that a set of customers are just going to fall in love because you have these 4 things in it. Now, you may not make everybody fall in love, but this one group of customers, which I think you want to focus on, that segment as we call it, right? The personas that make up the segment. You want to build only those 4 things in your version. And wherever you draw that line, that's your version. Not in the next 3 months, I have a train schedule and what can fit. Every 3 months I will do a version. Those are all not so great ways of doing it. That's an engineering efficiency thing that people are solving. That every month there is a release, so load up the train, whatever fits in, fits in. I think that's not a great way of building products, in my opinion, because those, you can release things faster, but the customer may not be willing to absorb at that speed with which you are producing your product, right? So from a version perspective, I would say pick one segment, not multiple segments, and for that segment, what are the minimum set of 4 things that will make them switch? And by the way, the world that we live in, unfortunately or fortunately also, everybody is switching from something to you. Is that fair? Is there any product that you guys know of where you are the only one doing this in your industry? It is almost impossible because there is also this third thing which is called alternative. The alternative is do nothing. Even if there is no competition, the customer has a choice. And the choice is, do nothing. So now you're fighting with do nothing. So there's always a fight to move them, to switch them from somewhere. So I would say that is the way you should be looking at it. But I'm happy to share some blogs to help you with some specific techniques if you're interested. Yeah.
Hey Pinkesh, my name is Vinayak. You seem to have an amazing career trajectory, right from engineer to engineering lead, product lead, and now CPO, CMO. So what's the career advice you'd like to give early career PMs like us who aspire to reach those executive levels?
Well, there's a lot of things I didn't do and I wish I did, but I think if I can share some of those, maybe that might help, right? I think the first thing is I just was too comfortable with my comfort zone. Life was good, in this world, and I think you have to start feeling uncomfortable. It's kind of oxymoron the way I'm saying it, but you have to feel uncomfortable with that comfort zone. Like if something is becoming so easy and so set in life, like so all organized, all nicely flown in, that's actually a danger zone, because you may become complacent enough to just stay there and not do more. So fortunately, these types of accidents that happen, fortunately some of the other coaches that I've had in my life earlier pushed me or made me think differently. So I have since then never been comfortable, with my comfort zone. And I would strongly recommend, be happy, don't always be unhappy, because that's the reverse of it also. Like, I don't like my life. I have so much money, I want more. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, at some point, are you striving to do little more than what you are today? 10% more, right? I think if you lose that, your learning stops. And unfortunately, in the world today that we live in, I have to stay on top of things. If I had not done marketing, this role would not have come to me. And now that I'm going to do this role, I have to learn even more to become an awesome, CMO for the next. Disney wants to hire. Disney CMO is a very different CMO, because now it's all about marketing. It's less about the cartoons, isn't it? So if you don't keep that track, I think it becomes harder. So I would strongly recommend do that. Second, I feel is find a coach. And this is one thing that I don't know why people in India don't do enough. You guys are on the top of the food chain. You got here and you're about to network with a lot of people. People just don't like networking. They thought, I did my IIT Kharagpur or whatever college, and now for the next 20 years, I just have to use all the hard work that I did. I just have to now leverage that next 20 years. So no need to learn, no need to meet other people, no need to figure out. I think this is a blind spot. Find a coach, find a mentor in your neighborhood, in your system. Find one here, since you're here today, before you go home. I think a lot of people don't proactively network. So I would say, do that. What else? What else is a critical thing that might help? I think continuously learning, to me, and it's becoming easier now in today's world, right? Thanks to Udemy, thanks to Coursera, thanks to YouTube. In my days, I had to go spend so much money to go learn from a Stanford professor, right? I always had the dream to do an MBA, by the way. I am not an MBA, by the way. So I have not done an MBA. I teach at IIM Bangalore, is a different story with MBAs now. But I wish I had done some learning in early stage of my life, but it was too expensive for me. That Stanford prof to get access to, I'm talking about like $250,000 before I can. That Stanford professor is available for free on Coursera, right? In fact, it's even better. You can make that professor say the same thing 5 times. Right? Can you not? Go to Coursera, rewind, 10 seconds. No, tell me one more time. I didn't get it. Last time I didn't get it. Try doing that with your real professor at whatever college. It'll be the last day at your college, isn't it? You'll be thrown out. So we have so much tools now. And I think we're just not prioritizing that, perhaps. So I think continuously learning, relevant learning, I would say. Experiential learning, that's the other thing. Learning is not just to get some certificates and 4-letter words and all of that. I think to apply that in some context. Volunteer. I know in Bangalore we have this awesome 10,000 startups. You guys, anybody from I know there's some startups that have come in the evening. Yeah? 10,000 startups, right? Yeah? And so there are 10,000 startups sitting in this Domlur warehouse district somewhere in Koramangala or Domlur. Go and volunteer. Don't ask for money. They don't have any money. So even if you ask for it, they're not going to give you any. But why don't you go and learn something? Go volunteer some time, 2 hours on a Saturday instead of Netflixing or whatever else that you have going on in your life. Build that experience by applying that skill, because your current employer may not have that opportunity to give you. Some of you are lucky, some of you are not. That's okay. Find that experiential opportunity to learn. Those would be the things that I would recommend. Yeah, does that make sense?
Hey, hi Pinkesh,
Yes.
Tushar here.
Yes.
Continuing the same question. So I have 2 questions. One, what is your go-to place when you have to learn new things? As you have changed the industry and changing the role, what are your go-to places like, hey, this is how I'm going to learn? That is one. And second, as you said that as you progress above in your progression, the thrill increases.
Yeah.
And also you have to be performing at that level. So how do you manage that thrill?
Yeah. Great questions. Both of them great questions. So 10 years ago, I would resort to books and paid training. Like I'd go to a workshop or sign up for a class. I think 5 years ago, I switched to a lot more digital, like LinkedIn Learning is my favorite. I've tried all kinds of other things, but I like LinkedIn Learning a little better. And I'm not doing a paid advertising for LinkedIn Learning. I'm not associated with them, although I'm sure they'll be very happy that I'm saying what I'm saying. I really like what they're doing. Now I spend a lot more time, so LinkedIn Learning continues to be my personal favorite, but I spend a lot more time in networking with people who already have that skills. And I think paying it forward helps me. I've built a reputation that I pay it forward. Like I spend hours of my life teaching, mentoring, and coaching. It's not the money. I mean, my per hour rate at Qualys, let me not talk about that. It's pretty high, right? So I am well taken care of. Let's put it that way. So it's not about the money, but the point is I want to kind of do this, and I think that reflects back a little bit of that on you, that okay, if you're paying it forward when you need it, somebody is going to be there up there who's also paying it forward that you need now, right? So I feel like I've been very fortunate to find those people. When they look at my profile, they look at what I do, they feel that they will take my call. Like I was talking to the chief marketing officer at SurveyMonkey. Have you heard about this company called fairly large, viral growth company, thousands of customers signing up every day. A machinery that has no salespeople, millions of dollars of revenue, 0 salespeople. Can you believe that? Right. So this is like PLG at its core. And I was reaching out to this, chief marketing officer on LinkedIn, saying, "Hey, look, I'm struggling with these 3 things here that I'm trying to implement. Here's how I'm thinking, but I'd like to get 15 minutes with you on a quick call." And first time she didn't respond. People are busy. She responded, and we had a great call. And I said, "Look, why did you say no to the first one, or why did you take my call?" And this is what she told me. This is literally as early as like 2 weeks ago. She said, "I looked at your profile, and I liked the fact that you've been helping and coaching others, and I felt like I should do that." Because there's so many people coming to her. Her inbox is flooded with people like me who are wanting to talk to her because she's like a, fairly good celebrity in her space. But this is what it worked out for me. So I don't know if it's going to work out for you or not, but it certainly has been working out for me that people look at who you are and how much are you contributing if possible. And LinkedIn, social networks are kind of good indicative of that, right? So, super. Any last questions before I am given, how are we doing on time? We're good? Okay. Any questions? Anything else I can share? How many of you are chief product officers here? First of all, I should have asked. Okay, nobody. How many of you are VP? Couple. Chief of product officer. Well, there you go. Well, go. This is the guy you want to hang out with. No, seriously. Find mentors, find coaches, make them fall in love with you professionally so that they actually help and take the time, because everybody is busy. I'm busy, he's busy. If you ask him, he's super busy without even knowing him. I can tell you and vouch for him that he's super busy. We all are. Right? I think finding that mentoring, finding that coaching, showing that interest that you really care, I think is going to be super important. Right? How many of you are in product management today? Already in some kind of product management? I'm in product management. I mean, you should feel good. Good. Half of you. How many of you want to get into product management? A good, fair amount of you. How many of you have no interest in getting into product management? No, why? That's a good thing. There you go. Yeah, she's got a good thing going on for her. Good. So most of you are in that zone. My recommendation is don't fall for this word product management as a title. That's another thing that I see in India especially. Here's my candid advice. You may be doing product management work, but you're just not called. And the reverse is also very, very true. You're called a product manager, but please don't raise your hand. You may not be doing product management. You may be doing project management. You may be doing business analysis. You may be doing requirements writing. You may be doing some other things, which are good and important things, but that may not be product management even though you got the so-called title, right? So when I'm using the word product management, I'm talking about the role. the context of, are you in charge of the customer context, business context, innovation context, and are you making decisions using the skills in these three contexts across the life cycle of the product? If the answer is yes, you're absolutely a product manager. It doesn't matter what the company calls you or what title seems to. We have very fancy titles in India, I can tell you that. I have about 1,100 people in India, in Pune, a fairly large presence. I have about a couple hundred in US. My US titles are all very streamlined, right? But when I sit down with my India gang, and not just, I should not talk about Qualys. Let me talk about some other company, right, in the past. I've heard titles like product, not product, what is it called? I have to remember this. Product scientist. Product line manager we have, yeah, that's a good, product scientist. Product scientist, seriously, this is a role, this is a title that some company has without naming the company. All of you know this company. It is that popular of a company, okay? So it's not some small startup who's clueless. And so I was coaching this person and he says, this is what I'm called. I said, oh, forget about your question, I have a question for you. How did you get this title, right? And so he told me the long story short. He said, look, research scientist is a higher grade in his company than other titles, like level 8, level 9. So you get more salary, more bonus, more whatever. And the company did not know what to call me. I was the first of the product manager type of person in India, right? Because this is setting it up in India. And so they asked me, the HR asked me, what would you like to be called? And this guy says, oh, that's a great opportunity here, right? So he went, literally, he goes home, takes a weekend, researches everything in the industry, researches everything in his company, and he says, I think you should call me a product scientist. Because I do product work, but I'd like to be called a scientist because the level is much higher. And he actually got it. There is a real person who's doing product management work called what I just called. And so this is real, this is happening. So titles are very, very creative. Let's put it that way. So don't fall for titles, don't go chase them either. It looks good on the surface and then for a while and then it will not kind of help you, right? So I would say focus on the role, build the skills, do the things that we talked about. I think all of you will do super well. I'm super confident and happy to connect with all of you on LinkedIn. Send me a little note why you're connecting because I get a lot of requests. I now know that, okay, it was this gang here. If you'd like to, happy to connect you to other folks who I think could help each one of you in your journey. I may reach out to some of you to get some help that I need. So look forward to that. Yeah, one last question. Can we take one last question? Is that okay? Yeah, okay.
Pinkesh, this is Jayantan. First of all, great session.
Thank you.
Fortunately, I'm your product manager for a PLG-driven SaaS.
Very good.
Based out of Chennai.
Very nice.
So it was making sense when you told PLG.
Yeah.
5 to 7 years back, building product was tough. Like for example, ChargeBee or Freshdesk. Someone was, finding difficulty to build APIs. And distribution was easy. I mean, you build it, people were there to test it.
Yeah.
Right now, we are in a phase that we can build product easy, very faster, but distribution is tough. We just only solved half the puzzle.
Yeah.
So my founder was telling, you just need to go and figure out how you want to distribute the product.
Yeah.
I mean, as you rightly told, I'm just going to become a growth hacker.
Yeah.
So it's not only building the product, I'm going to become a growth hacker as well. I'm just doing that growth PM job. The question here is, 5 years from now, so I just told product was easy, now finding distribution is tough. Let's assume I'm going to build a product like a founder, right? Like 5 years from now, what's the trend going to be like? So product building, distribution, what's the trend going to be like in after 5 years? Especially from the US markets since you've been there.
Yeah, it's a great question. No, and the US market is not too different. By the way, what happens in US within a few years gets very quickly implemented in the rest of the world and specifically in India. In fact, the SaaS products are at par. What we do here in India is pretty global, cutting edge global stuff, especially in that SaaS, And apparently Chennai seems to be the, it's like the Bollywood is Mumbai, right? Like they create all the film stars and they all live there. The SaaS stars apparently all live in Chennai. I don't know if you guys have seen or noticed that. And so move to Chennai if you want to become a SaaS star, right? No, that was just a quick comment. Don't move to Chennai. Bangalore weather is awesome. except for when it rains and then you guys have boats to come out, right? I heard somebody was sending me a picture that some floods happened recently here, right? And there was an Uber, order an Uber boat. On the Uber screen, like you can order a car for Bangalore, you can get a boat to go from point B to. So I thought it was pretty funny that I saw that. The question is a very insightful one. So let me maybe take 30 seconds on where we are today, and then I'll tell you what I think is going to happen 5 years from now. What is happening today is that it is becoming super easy to build stuff. And that's great because half of the components that you need to assemble this new product are already available, either through open source or through third-party systems and libraries and whatever, or behind the scene you can connect 3 of these things to assemble your bhel. It's like the bhel puri guy. The guy makes nothing. If you really go, when the murmura came from somewhere, the save is Haldiram, the chutney was, I don't know, made last year, right? It's just frozen. The guy assembles it and gives it to you as if it is the most awesomest thing, right? And he made nothing, right? So in some sense, we are in that zone where it is easier to build products, technology-wise, harder to now get the attention of the user, because the same user has been now poached or addressed by multiple people, multiple vendors, right? So it's kind of hard to differentiate your offering. And so that is a challenge. So you need to learn a lot more of digital marketing skills. And since I'm already on the bad path of telling you a lot more scary news, let me tell you one more skill that all of you will have to learn. Most of you will have to learn, especially in your PLG zone, is the copywriting skills. All of a sudden, you'll have to become a brand billboard manager. These guys, they put this one line on the billboard, and there are agencies who charge you crores of rupees to arrive at that 2 lines. I don't know if you guys know the story about Accenture. You know Accenture? You know how much money was paid to the agency to arrive at the name Accenture? Accenture is not an accident that somebody went in, mixed up 2 words and say, yeah, let's call this company Accenture. They could have. They spent $18 million in arriving at the name Accenture. I thought it's well worth it because they've done well with that name. It sticks, right? Let me give you an Indian example. It was Anderson Consulting before, and then it became Accenture. Paytm karo. Have you heard of this? I had to sing it because otherwise most people will say like, what is that? Paytm karo, that slogan, Paytm karo, has become one of the most famous, iconic things that have triggered all kinds of things. Crores of rupees were spent to arrive at that. That was not easy, right? And lots of time went in to arrive at these 2 words. So now, each one of you have to, in addition to whatever else I said, have to start thinking about how am I going to write the right copy? Because remember, its product has to self-sell. Well, self-sell means somebody has to tell me what your product does, which means you have to go to the website, or you have to create some landing page, or you have to do something. You'll have to put some title there. Well, welcome to a new skill, right? Because if you don't do that, you're going to get lost. So that's the reality of today. I think 5 years from now, people will stop buying products. I think people will only buy use cases or license or rent things that they want, and they don't even know which product is serving what. And I'm not buying any product, right? I'm just turning on things, using it for what I want. And so what I call a lot of platforms will be emerging. And you're already seeing some of it today, but I think it's going to become a lot more. So here's my prediction before I leave today. On the positive side, because I gave a lot of I feel like I talked a lot about scary stuff. So let me give you some optimistic, positive news. Each one of you is going to get a free car. Everybody with me here so far? You show an Aadhaar card somewhere, and you get a free car. No cost. Nobody's going to ask you to pay $15,000 or 20 lakhs or 10 lakhs of rupees, whatever it is that you're trying to buy otherwise, it's going to be free. Can anybody get a bike? Exactly. Car is free. The electricity that's going to power it is not. Car is free. Internet is in the car that you're going to get from AT&T or Airtel is not free. Car is free, but the AI engine that will automatically predict and say, you know what, 3 days from now, your engine is gonna shut down because it's like so clogged up right now. Here is the nearest service station. By the way, this is already happening in cars in the United States as I'm speaking. I have a very low-end car. My car does this. It sends a little signal saying, something is wrong. So I click on it. 2 days from now, we feel like your combustion engine is not working well, your oil change has to happen. We've taken the liberty to connect to your calendar, find out the open slot that you have, the nearest service station where you live, because we know where you live, it's all connected. We've already taken an appointment and booked it. Which means the car is now going to get 15% commissions from that service shop where it's routing my car and me to go and get that service done. So you think about it, if my car manufacturer is going to make all of this money from all of these vendors, insurance, electricity, internet, service technician, car is lost, low jack, right? To be able to find your car through GPS coordinates, If you're going to make all this money, why do I need to sell you this car? Just take it. Drive as much as you can. Drive more, in fact. Right? Because if you drive more, you consume more. You consume more of the platform, I get paid more, right? So that is the future. Yeah, and I'm saying that's going to be the future. I haven't disclosed the brand yet. No, I don't know. This is my way of saying platform is the future, not the product. You're not buying a product. You're buying consumption of value that just happens to be through this product called a car. So nobody's interested in selling you the car, right? By the way, this is already happening in some shapes or forms. You see in US, you buy a chewing gum, you get a printer for free. You guys know this? Nobody know this? So this is like 4 years ago, sensational thing. You go buy a Wrigley's pair of chewing gum, 99 cents. You get a printer for free. Now you know why. Printer is free, the cartridge is not. And so over the lifetime value, this is what we use in product management, right? The TLV, the total lifetime value of that printer is about 3 years. In that 3 years, you're going to use $360 worth of, $364 precisely is the analysis they did, of cartridges from HP. I make so much money on cartridges. Why do I want to sell you this $40 printer and waste my time telling you this is a better printer, this is better, just take it. Buy a chewing gum, printer is free. It's already happening, right? And so this is an example of platform-driven monetization as opposed to selling products. So that's my short answer of what's going to happen 5 years from now. Although a lot of things will happen 5 years from now, but I think this is going to be an exciting one. Awesome. I wish you all the very best, and it was great meeting you. Yeah.
Thank you, Pinkesh, for the insightful session. Before we wind up, we would like to present you a small token of appreciation. I would request Arun Raghunathan to do the honors.